And a very happy Tuesday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wags at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, it's time to play Speaker or No Speaker, and as of 12:08 in the Pacific time zone, there is no Speaker of the House because Jim Jordan fell short.
And did you see the picture of Kevin McCarthy sitting there in the peanut gallery after Jim Jordan fell short of the votes?
What did it look like?
I've been there and I've done that.
Of course, the Speaker's vote was being carried live on most cable news, including on Fox News, where Brian Kilmeade didn't realize that his mic was on when he said something derogatory about Congressman from Nebraska, Don Bacon.
Bacon. McCarthy.
Dumbass.
Did you see, oh dear, I forget which day it was, but it was when the news was all about what was going on in the Middle East. And it was serious, heavy stuff. And it was the woman who took over for Rachel Maddow, Alex Wagner, who was doing the live handoff to Stephanie Ruhle, who used to be a business reporter before she became a host on MSNBC. And I don't know who she was talking to and what this was in regard to, but she made this Jim Carrey face from Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, right into the camera as they're talking about death and destruction and all of these horrible things. And she didn't know that she was on live television.
Oh, boy.
Oops. Always be careful when you're around cameras or microphones because you never know if Kevin De Leon is going to be on that tape with you.
Quite frankly.
Thank God we have a dump button.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Every once in a while, we see a story in the news that just doesn't make sense. Not that long ago, Randy, speaking of Kevin De Leon, we did a story about him that he absolutely made up about relatives who were visiting him from out of town who wanted to go to the beach, and he told them to use public transit, and they were blown away by how clean and safe it was.
It is hot as hell.
Yes, and then he told them while they're in Little Tokyo to get some sushi.
And some sake, and apparently they're not even of age.
Nothing added up with that story.
No. At one point it was one person. At another point it was multiple people. The story was just made up. There's another story that's being reported that we are calling BS on. And it's not necessarily a local story per se, but it certainly impacts us locally here, and any of us who live in Southern California know exactly what's going on. And the company line that we're being told is not true. Of course, I'm referring to the bankruptcy of Rite Aid. Rite Aid, which used to be Thrifty, which has the most delicious ice cream on planet Earth, is now closing down a number of stores. And the mainstream media is reporting that they're facing financial difficulties because of lawsuits related to pharmaceuticals. That's what's being reported on the television. That's what's being reported on the radio. That's what's being reported in the big city newspapers and the business periodicals. Let's go ahead and listen to one report about the bankruptcy of Rite Aid.
Here is KTLA 5.
The company filing for bankruptcy on Sunday, but it doesn't mean that stores like the one you see behind me are going to necessarily be shutting down. And they filed for bankruptcy for two reasons. The first one, they're buried under billions in dollars of debt. The second reason, they are facing...
Maybe they should have stopped. Maybe they should have kept going with the giving away ice cream for a flu shot.
That's right. And that ice cream parlor isn't always open. That needs to be open all the time. If it's open all the time, you'll see more John.
Well, there's usually like one person working in the entire store. And so if there's a line of people checking out, you are never getting that ice cream.
No, you're just going to stand there for a long time. Why do they even still have a 1-hour photo? Just put another body in the ice cream joint.
Seriously, pharmacies are like walking into a museum sometimes.
They're buried under billions in dollars of debt. The second reason, they are facing thousands of lawsuits that claim that they illegally prescribed prescription drugs, fueling that opioid epidemic the country is now facing.
Okay, see, that one I don't understand because they're a pharmacy. They're not doctors. They don't write prescriptions. They just fill them.
That's right. If you are a pharmacy and a doctor writes a prescription for a drug, you're not the doctor that is signing off on it. You're simply filling the prescription. If the person lies to the doctor, you're not privy to that conversation. If the doctor is on the take and the doctor is doing something illegal, you're not privy to that information. All you have is you have access to the prescription that is called in by the doctor. And I don't know about you, Randy, but for me, my doctor doesn't even write me a prescription on a pad anymore. He just calls it into the pharmacy, and I get a text message from the pharmacy when it's ready for pickup.
Yeah, that doctor probably had a patient or two that was forging their signature.
Doctor.
All right, let's go to a little bit more detail about what happened in the lead up to this bankruptcy. Drugstores like Rite Aid have been hurting as shoppers increasingly turn to retailers like Amazon and Walmart.
Can you get Vicodin on Amazon?
Well, you can probably get it off of sub websites. I don't know if that specific one will sell it to you.
Amazon and Walmart for cheaper prices. And as the demand for COVID vaccines...
Can I get an Amazon Prime on Xanax? 2-day delivery?
2-day delivery, 2-hour delivery.
COVID vaccines and COVID testing goes down. Their pharmacies are also seeing a slowdown in revenue. But in 2022, Rite Aid settled for $30 million to resolve lawsuits alleging its pharmacies contributed to an oversupply of prescription opioids that contributed to the nation's opioid epidemic. That $1 million lawsuit settlement really hurt them in their pockets. And then a few months ago, the Department of Justice...
$30 million doesn't seem a lot for a national pharmacy chain.
No. $30 million. Shohei Ohtani might get $600 million for his next contract.
Well, and, you know, you hear these big numbers when you hear about these settlements and these lawsuits, but every major corporation has liability insurance. So they're not paying it. They dip into their insurance. Yeah, their rates are going to go up, but they're not writing a check for $30 million. Their insurance company is.
That's right. What did that grandma get from McDonald's who spilled the coffee on her crotch?
Not enough.
In their pockets. And then a few months ago, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Rite Aid claiming they violated the Controlled Substances Act by filing thousands of unlawful prescriptions for controlled substances like fentanyl and oxycodone. All right, so what happens now? Rite Aid was able to raise about $4 billion over the weekends from lenders to be able to keep...
Okay, wait a minute. Stop the tape. Are they alleging that Rite Aid was giving out these drugs without prescriptions?
Against Rite Aid, claiming they violated the Controlled Substances Act by filing thousands of unlawful prescriptions for controlled substances like fentanyl and oxycodone.
So the pharmacist had a little side business going on? Is that what's being alleged here?
Okay, if a pharmacist is writing giving out prescriptions or giving out drugs without a proper prescription from a physician, then wouldn't that person go to prison?
Yeah, that's a crime. That's not like, that's not the regular behavior of a pharmacy company.
No. And if that is what the pharmacy is doing, let's say the pharmacy has a policy of we can make extra money by giving out drugs without prescriptions, then that's a criminal enterprise. There's no difference between the pharmacy and the cartel. But it seems to me that the pharmacy is just filling the prescriptions that the doctors are calling in.
I'm also not totally sure that you can get something like fentanyl at a Rite Aid or a Walgreens or a CVS.
No, the most addictive thing that you'll find at a Rite Aid are the Doritos.
I mean, think of all of the nonsense they make you go through when you buy Sudafed because some people make meth with it.
Now, there's something about this that doesn't make any sense.
All right, so what happens now? Rite Aid was able to raise about $4 billion over the weekends from lenders to be able to keep running and operate their stores, but that doesn't mean they won't likely be closing some of those stores. Take a look at that statement released from Rite Aid yesterday. They say, quote, the company will continue assessing its footprint and close additional underperforming stores. These efforts will further reduce the company's rent expense and are expected to strengthen its overall financial performance. Now, Wall Street Journal reporting it has closed.
Okay, stop the tape. They're going to close, quote, underperforming stores, and they're going to get out of leases. Leases would be very expensive in big cities where they have all of the problems that big cities are dealing with. Imagine having a Rite Aid in San Francisco where you're hemorrhaging money and you're also paying a fortune in rent. Imagine having a Rite Aid in downtown LA or Santa Monica where your items are being stolen on a regular basis, but you don't sign a 1-year lease for a Rite Aid. You sign like a 10-year lease. These aren't month-to-month deals. So if you do not believe that the political climate is going to change in an area anytime soon, you need an excuse to get out of your lease. Otherwise, you're going to have a dog in the system for 10 full years, and you're going to lose your shirt. The money seemed to be lined up. Let's replay this one more time because it sounds like they had the money lined up, and it sounds like what they were looking to do was close a bunch of stores and have the legal ability to get out of the lease without having to pay it off.
The company will continue assessing its footprint and close additional underperforming stores. These efforts will further reduce the company's rent expense and are expected to strengthen its overall financial performance. Now, Wall Street Journal reporting it has closed more than 200 stores in the past 2 years. But the Philadelphia-based company says over the weekend, in addition to filing for bankruptcy, they also appointed a new CEO yesterday who is going to help them in their new restructuring plan that will hopefully bring back the company so that they can survive these many setbacks that they've been seeing and these obstacles that they've had. But if many of you are waking up this morning and say, I have a prescription to pick up here at the pharmacy, or Lauren, as you mentioned, I have to go get my ice cream, these stores will still be open come this morning.
Yeah, but they're not selling you the ice cream.
No, not in the morning.
Reporting live, I'll send it back to you in the studio.
So that's Rite Aid's story.
Okay.
We got sued too many times for opiates.
It doesn't matter which Rite Aid location you're talking about. They all have pharmacies. So if the issue is lawsuits related to the pharmacies, then it's not one of these things where you can shut down locations situationally and it's like, okay, well, we reduce that liability. The Target near my house, or some of the Targets, they have recycling facilities that are there that attract nothing but the homeless. You go to a Target in Portland or someplace like that, and they have recycling facilities in the front, it attracts a crowd that is going to harass the paying customers, and it attracts a crowd that's going to bring a lot of things with them that you don't like. So you eliminate that department to reduce your liability because that department is attracting a lot of things you don't want. But that's not what they're doing. It's not like, okay, we're just going to sell ice cream. We're just going to do photos. We're just going to sell over-the-counter medication, and we're going to get rid of the prescription aspect of it because that's what's causing all of our liability. They're not doing that. They're saying we're closing down underperforming locations. Well, you're still handing out prescriptions, and you're still handing out the same drugs you were yesterday. That doesn't make any sense.
But if it's not that, then what could it be?
Here's what I think. I think crime is so bad in major American cities that Rite Aid needed an excuse to get out of their leases. And because they're a woke company, they don't want to come out and say that retail theft is, and the homeless problem is so bad that they cannot make a buck anymore. and they need to get out of certain locations, and they need to get out of certain locations yesterday. Otherwise, they're going to go belly up thanks to retail theft.
Well, and it's interesting that you make that point, because you look at what happened at the Walgreens in San Francisco, the one that went viral for chaining up the freezer section because everyone was stealing the ice cream and the pizza. There was an on-duty San Francisco police officer who detained 8 people in the span of 4 hours from stealing from that store. And even though it's a rampant problem, and that's why they're locking up the ice cream, Walgreens declined to press charges against any of them.
That's right, because they don't want to be accused of putting people in prison. And then go back to just putting their items behind glass. They got accused of all kinds of discrimination by putting everything behind glass in San Francisco and not over the bridge in Tiburon. And the implication was, in the rich, affluent area, you can buy anything you want without having to have an associate unlock the glass and get it out for you. But in San Francisco, everything is behind the glass. And San Francisco is far more diverse than Tiburon, and they're treating the diverse communities like criminals while they're treating the communities in Tiburon as if they're going to pay for all of the items that they take out of the store with them. Now, apply that same logic to shutting down locations. If you shut down locations in areas that are more diverse than the areas that you're leaving them open in, you're going to get accused of all kinds of discrimination. But if it's bankruptcy related to unrelated lawsuits, well, that's just you trying to stay operational. I don't think they want to go on the record saying that crime is as bad as it is. I think they're probably close to becoming uninsurable. I think that's another factor. And I think that they don't want to be accused of any kind of discrimination, but they want carte blanche ability to shut down locations where theft and homelessness is killing their ability to make a buck. In my own town, there are 2 Rite Aids. One they just shut down. And they shut down the one in downtown where they should be able to mint money because that's where all the tourists are. Tourists who come to town, they need Pedialyte, they need bottled water, they need beer, they need sunblock, they need NyQuil, they need all the stuff that Rite Aid sells. Yet they can't make any money because the homeless steal everything.
And that's the most prime demographic you can have for an area that needs a pharmacy. It's nothing but old people that live there.
That's right. But then you have another one that's away from downtown, away from where all the homeless are, and that one is still operational. If you're going to pick one to shut down, boy, if they just did it at random, they pick the one that has all the problems, and they shut that one down. No, I think this is Rite Aid not being honest. And, you know, when they have their calls with their investors, they talk about retail theft. Remember we played the sound, Randy, of one of them on one of those calls? Maybe it was Walmart. I can't remember exactly which company it was. But they talked about how retail theft was exploding and a threat to their bottom line. And they use that as the excuse to explain their awful numbers. So let's throw open the phones now at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Rite Aid says they're filing for bankruptcy because of lawsuits related to the pharmacy. I believe they're filing for bankruptcy because of rampant retail theft, but they don't want to touch that hot potato. What say you? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Chuck writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. There's nothing Rite Aid has that can't be purchased for a lot less money elsewhere, and little pharmacies are all over my city. They mainly cater to senior citizens who will pay $6 for Spam.
Now, that's $6 too many. And, Randy, if you want to listen to the podcast edition of this show, that is easy to do.
That's right. Just go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. Or the easiest way ever is just to download the new KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the best, most clutter-free way to listen live to our live stream whenever and wherever you are, in case you're outside of the LA radio listening area. And you can download all the podcasts. Listen to them on CarPlay. It is fantastic. It is like the heroin of apps.
I love heroin.
Rite Aid has filed for bankruptcy. They say it's because of lawsuits related to their pharmacy. I believe it's retail theft. But if they were honest about it being retail theft, they would be challenging the narrative that's put out by George Gascon and Gavin Newsom, the Board of Supervisors, and everyone else, and they don't want to pick a political fight. They're closing down their quote-unquote underperforming stores, and bankruptcy lets them out of their long-term leases. I think it's retail theft. I think that's the cause that Rite Aid is filing for bankruptcy. What say you? At 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Is Rite Aid filing for bankruptcy because of lawsuits related to the pharmacy or retail theft? Right now, we're taking your calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The giant drugstore Rite Aid said they filed for bankruptcy because of lawsuits against their pharmacy. I believe that's not the real answer. I think the real answer is rampant retail theft. What say you? At 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's begin with Mike in Monrovia. Mike, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Hey, John and Randy. Love this show, man. What a great station. Anyway, it's a good alternative to any other garbage we have to listen to out there, but this is fantastic. My
Thank
take
you.
on the whole thing is basically, you're welcome. My take on the whole thing basically is that, like you said, has nothing to do with this whole pharmacy deal. Not only is it the retail theft that's not being prosecuted because stations do not arrest people because they're afraid to get sued, which I found out firsthand from my local police station, that's why they don't get the people out of the local parks and whatnot. They're afraid what might happen in the courts. That's number one. Number two, and the biggest reason why these places are closing is because they're paying people too much money. $20 to $25 an hour to be an aisle personnel at Rite Aid is not equated to being a successful business.
All right. Thank you so much for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Mary in Los Angeles. Mary, you're on KABC. Hello.
Mary didn't pay her phone bill. Try Don in Orange County.
Hi, Don.
Hi. Are you there?
I'm here.
Good.
Three.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I understood your comment earlier that had to do with discrimination. I really don't think that has closing a store that they can be described as being discriminatory in terms of race or ethnic class or homelessness or whatnot. I mean, we discriminate every day. You go to the market, I buy an apple instead of an orange. I've just made a discriminating attempt to get what I wanted. But what I'm really getting at is that they've determined that they don't want to operate in an area where they know there's going to be theft, breakage of glass, all that stuff. They've chosen to go to an area where people pay their bills, not that they're just stealing all the time. And so that they can't lay this off on discriminating against people for whatever reason. That's not the issue. It's a business decision. And then beyond that, Rite Aid was a pharmacy that I would use for all my drug, medications and whatnot. And CVS called me one day and said they're not taking it over. Well, the problem with Rite Aid is they just had bad operating results. They were inefficient in delivering the product. So I think that this whole thing about closing stores has nothing to do with any of this that we're talking about, more to do with the fact it's a convenient way to get out of some of these long-term debts and commitments that they have, write off creditors and start over. That's basically how I see it.
Why do you think they're closing certain locations? They said they were closing locations that were not profitable.
Well, first of all, when they have these kinds of events on somewhat regular basis, then they can't maintain the traffic that they normally would. People that are going in, honestly, getting their prescriptions, buying, whatever they're buying. I mean, they have a great ice cream counter, by the way. And so that type of good business has gone somewhere else because people are afraid to go into these stores. So I think they're closing them because they're just inefficient. I mean, when you look at how much, really and truly, a business is doing $1 billion a year, and a couple, 3 times a year, whatever it is, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 stores, whatever it is, they lose a couple $1,000 worth of product. Well, the net on that, I mean, it doesn't seem realistic that they would close their entire operation down because they lost a few $1,000s. That's not it. The real reason is they're probably not returning enough to the stockholders, and their business model is not working. And maybe they're overwhelmed by debt too much, like leases are a major form of their debt. I mean, if they're not turning the profit in these locations where they need to, then they're looking for a way to shut them down. I think it's just a convenient way for them to get out and scale back and cut their losses based on their operational results.
All right. Well, we've got a vote for managerial inefficiencies at Rite Aid. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it.
It is a managerial inefficiency that there's nobody behind that ice cream counter the entire time the store's open.
That's right, because then John can't get his mint and chip.
I want my chocolate malted crunch. Thank you very much.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Rite Aid is filing for bankruptcy, saying it's as a direct result of a lawsuit against their pharmacy. I think retail theft has more to do with it. What say you? 800-222-KABC. Rite Aid is filed for bankruptcy. They say it's due to lawsuits related to their pharmacy. I think retail theft has much more to do with it. What say you? 800-222-KABC. Let's go to Phil in Anaheim Hills. Phil, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Thanks, John. Thanks for taking my call. In terms of Rite Aid and going bankrupt, there's a number of different reasons why any company can go bankrupt, usually having to do with cash flow. But I will tell you this, shrinkage, as they call it in retail, consists of a lot of different things, not the least most, of course, is theft. And most retail companies will operate in the 3 to 4% bottom line margin, and their shrinkage will be anywhere from 2 to 3, maybe even 4%, depending on the company. So any kind of pressure put on a company's bottom line through increase in shrinkage is necessarily going to exacerbate a cash flow problem. So I would think that has a major impact on it in the long run. I'm not so sure in the short run that that's exactly what happened with Rite Aid.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Lee in Laverne. Lee, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Hi, John. Hi, Randy. I'm sitting in the Rite Aid parking lot out here in Laverne right now. They closed down about 2.5 months ago. Right now, they left all their fixtures inside, so they're doing a big old liquidation. People are pulling up in trucks and taking out refrigeration units and shelving and everything else. I was friends with Annie, the manager here. She managed this place for 15 years. She always hit her numbers. The guy that brought up the ice cream, they do have great ice cream, right? Thrifty. And it's overpriced. I mean, they sell it for $2 a scoop. You can get the same ice cream down at Circle K for like 3 scoops for like $2.20 total. They have no shrinkage here because every item is tagged. They got the little monitors at the front door. I shop here all the time. I've never seen people push shopping carts out of here with stolen merchandise. And she claims that she always hit her numbers, and she's as flummoxed as I am. I don't know. It must be a corporate decision. And I'm particularly perturbed because they're one of the few places that take recyclables, which I do, and they're on the honor system. You just put the bags in, separate the cans from the bottles, tell them exactly what's in there, how much, and unless you're totally, if like you walk in with one bag and say, I got $100 worth of cans in here, they're going to go, we think you'd better recount that. So all the other places, they make you hold the bag and they count along with you. So I'm upset this place is closing, and she doesn't know what happened. I don't know what happened. You tell me.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Dave in Orange. Dave, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hey, guys. I kind of agree with the previous caller. A lot of it has to do with strength. Some of it maybe is payroll. But, you know, I was telling your screener, I have a funny story. I was in Lawndale at a Ross, and I seen a particular person of a certain minority, won't name it, walk out with a big giant pile of clothes. And the loss prevention guy was like, sir, are you going to pay for that? Are you going to pay for that? And just watch him walk out the door. And I said to the loss prevention guy, because I'm a big guy, I'm 220 pounds, I said, if you want, I'll go get your stuff back for you. I'll stomp them out and get your stuff. He said, no, don't do that. We'll get sued. And I said, well, the problem with that is because you guys aren't doing that, I got to pay twice the price for my jeans. So I don't understand it. Everything's going bankrupt, and I think a lot of it has to do with the citizens or the DAs not prosecuting crimes. And I guarantee if you look at all these stores that are getting closed, they're all in lower income areas where people have the right to think they should just steal because they're poor.
Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. The one that closed in my neighborhood is not in a poor area. It just has a lot of homeless. There are a lot of homeless people that live in and around that Rite Aid. You look at the income level for the zip code, the income level is huge, but you have homeless people who don't think that they need to pay for anything. Let's go to George in Long Beach. George, you're on KABC. Hello.
Yeah, hi. I want to say I disagree with the position that it's about the retail theft. It happens, the retail theft. I'm against it. It's horrible. But the size of the lawsuit, the potential loss, is way greater than any. You multiply the retail theft by 10, it still pales as to the size of the potential loss that's coming their way.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Randy, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, look at this, a special giveaway for you. 790 KABC welcomes the Nightmare Before Christmas live in concert at the Hollywood Bowl on October 29th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.